Welcome to the Deep Dive. This is where we take your sources, your articles, your research, and really distill it down to the essentials.
Yep, getting straight to the core insights.
And today, we're heading to a city that's just full of life, full of contradictions. You've got these incredible ancient temples right next to, shimmering skyscrapers,
Six.
bustling markets, luxury malls, the whole thing. If you're guessing Bangkok, you are spot on.
City of Angels, yeah.
Exactly. So we're going to unpack the really fascinating, quite complex story of how this metropolis evolved from its, well, pretty humble beginnings right up to its status today as a global hub.
And our mission, for you listening, is really to pull out the most crucial bits from the materials you've given us. We want you to understand how Bangkok became Bangkok, what's shaping it right now, and maybe get some hints about its future.
Yeah, and this isn't just a history lesson. We're aiming to uncover some, frankly, surprising facts, trace transformations you might not know about, and touch on those ongoing debates about, well, what Bangkok is.
It's constantly redefining itself, in a way.
Absolutely. So by the end of this, you should feel pretty well informed, have that shortcut to understanding one of Southeast Asia's most captivating cities. Ready to dive in?
Let's do it.
Okay, so let's start right at the beginning, because Bangkok's origins are maybe not what people picture. It's this huge city now, but the sources say it started tiny.
Yeah, really small, basically just marshland, lots of water, simple cane huts,
Yeah.
and importantly, on the western banks of the Chao Phraya River.
Right, the western side first. Quite a leap from that to the megacity today.
It really is. And life back then, well, it revolved around the river. You had boat dwellers, fishermen mostly,
Mm-hmm.
and then inland farmers. The population was quite diverse even then. Thai, Mon, Khmer, Lao, Burmese, Malay people,
Uh-huh.
all living on this fertile plain that flooded pretty regularly.
And the river itself, the Chao Phraya, sounds like it was the center of everything. Our sources say it was so clean people actually drank from it.
Incredible, isn't it? Drank from it, bathed in it, swam, washed clothes, even cooked with the water. And for centuries, it was basically the main toilet, too.
Right, a different world. But there was a flip side. Fear of robbers at night.
Yeah, despite all that daytime activity, come nightfall, people stayed indoors, the river would get quiet. Safety was definitely a concern.
Okay, so how did this small settlement become the capital? There was a key moment, wasn't there? A decision.
There was. Back in 1664, King Rama I the Great actually considered moving the capital from Ayutthaya, the big power center at the time.
But he didn't, right?
No, ultimately Ayutthaya remained the capital then. The real shift came much later, 1782. King Rama I became very ill, and there was uncertainty.
Succession worries.
Exactly. A high-ranking noble proposed establishing a new city, partly to avoid potential conflict over the throne. And this idea, around the time the king passed, gained traction among the other nobles.
Interesting. So it was partly a political stability move, and that led to King Rama I.
Correct. King Rama I decided to move his court, his palace, from Thonburi, which is on the west bank,
Right.
across the river to the eastern bank. And on April 21st, 1782, he officially founded Krungthep, or Krungthep Mahanakhon.
The City of Angels.
That's the one. And the vision was for a fortified city. Even some early funding came from fees collected at water barriers, showing how vital the river was for defense and money.
So this kicks off the Rattanakosin era, but building a new capital, especially there, it wasn't straightforward.
Not at all. They were essentially building on a mud flat, lots of mangroves, clam beds. It made it difficult to just copy ancient city plans directly. The ground, probably wasn't ideal for some of the huge structures they might have envisioned.
But the location did have something unique going for it, the views.
Absolutely. Unlike many places, it was wide open lowlands. No hills, no mountains, just these undulating plains. Must have been quite a sight.
And they transformed it pretty quickly, didn't they, from that small mud-flat island, Phra Nakhon?
Yeah, it started around 9 square kilometers, tiny compared to now, maybe 100 times smaller.
Right.
But they aimed to make it even more beautiful than the old capital, Ayutthaya.
How so?
Well, that old moat around Ayutthaya was apparently quite dull. Here, they created this amazing, decorative, 2-mile-wide moat, lined it with luxurious palaces and fruit trees that apparently smelled wonderful for miles around.
That sounds incredible. And it wasn't just about beauty, was it? The temples along the moat.
That was hugely important. They became free schools for everyone, which was crucial for keeping Buddhism strong after Ayutthaya had fallen.
Right, a center for learning and faith.
And they built towers, too, on both riverbanks. Partly defense, sure, but also symbols. To show this was majestic Bangkok, the gateway to the kingdom for anyone arriving by river.
Now the name. It has that famously long official name.
Oh, yeah. Krungthep, Mahanakan, Amon Ratanakosin, Mahanthara Ayutha. It goes on.
Nobody says that,
I
though.
know. King Rama I, very practically, shortened it to Krungthep just to make it easier to say. And that's what Thai people generally call it.
Okay. And economically, this location was a winner.
Definitely. Rivers, canals, lots of natural resources nearby. It fueled a big trade boom, sometimes called the Krin Chen era.
Krum Chen.
Yeah, lots of goods flowing in, from India especially. Gold, textiles, pottery.
But that growth caused problems eventually.
It did. The population grew so fast that resources got strained. The city started feeling, well, the sources say out of control. They realized they needed to expand and plan Krungthep properly to handle everyone.
And around this time, Western influence starts becoming much more significant.
It does. There was contact way back in the 16th century, King Rama I's time, with European traders setting up. But it slowly seeped into the elites' lives. Military tech, shipping, architecture, even fashion and food. New ideas started circulating.
But the big moment was the Bowring Treaty, 1855.
That was the game changer. Signed under King Mongkut. It basically forced Siam or Thailand into unrestricted trade.
And Europeans started pouring in.
They did, which led to a sudden burst of infrastructure building. Railroads, telegraphs, phones, new roads, bridges.
Including Sharon Krung, that first Western-style street.
Right, built in 1862. Initially, it was kind of for European leisure gambling, drinking places, which actually caused a bit of a stir later, got publicly denounced.
Interesting. So there were tensions even then, contradictions.
Oh, absolutely. You had the Thai elite often embracing the new opportunities, for wealth and status.
Yeah.
But Westerners looking in often didn't really grasp the local culture or social dynamics.
Right.
And this new high society, the Sangkomfuka, it had its own internal stresses as it figured itself out.
And here's a detail I found fascinating. A lot of the concessions for railways, trams, utilities, they ended up in foreign hands.
That's a key point.
Yeah.
Yes, which meant prime public land, especially in the developing business areas, came under foreign control.
And some areas got grim nicknames. Siam's white man's grave.
Yeah, some of the outskirts, likely due to disease or conditions, it highlights that complex, sometimes uncomfortable colonial era dynamic.
So how did the Thai leadership react to all this? Did they see Bangkok as maybe stagnating?
Well, there was a perception, both from the monarchy and foreign powers, that maybe modernization wasn't happening fast enough. This actually led to an interesting alliance
Between who?
between some rebellious civil servants and military leaders. They were worried about Western technology giving foreigners too much power, especially with those concessions. They even tried to influence the young king, pointing out the potential threat.
Pushing for faster, more Thai-controlled modernization.
Essentially, yes.
Yeah.
Which leads us into the 20th century and some really ambitious reforms under Kings Chulalongkorn and Vajiralongkorn.
Right, they really started reshaping the city physically.
They did. Big projects, remodeling palaces, temples, building grand civic buildings, laying down wide avenues. But crucially, they also opened up royal areas that had been exclusive.
How did they do that?
Through things like public summer and winter fairs, it allowed different ethnic groups, different social classes, access to these central spaces for the first time, a really big step towards a more, public city.
That's quite different from how colonization often worked elsewhere, like Rangoon.
Exactly. Our sources draw that comparison. Bangkok's changes were driven internally by the king's vision. In Rangoon, under the British, you got new urban plans, sure, but less genuine cultural mixing. The changes felt more imposed from outside.
And the economy during this period, you mentioned railways earlier.
That, combined with a huge global demand for rice, triggered an absolute explosion in Bangkok's population. Massive migration from the countryside.
How big an explosion?
The sources say it went from maybe 10,000 houses to around 180,000 houses in a relatively short period. It just cemented Bangkok as the absolute center of the country.
Wow. And new industries popped up?
Yep. Things like the first bakery, though some early factories didn't quite take off. Big government operations started, like the Custom House, the State Railway. And later, significant foreign investment, especially British and American, helped launch larger industries, like sugar mills around 1921.
But growth like that always has a downside, doesn't it?
Always. While some got wealthy, it also meant widespread poverty for many newcomers. Slums started forming. Devastating fires were a constant threat. And the city became quite compartmentalized. You had communities of Cambodians, Laotians, Chinese, Malays, Vietnamese, Indians, Thais, often living separately, struggling to get by, divided by language and background.
A real melting pot, but maybe not always mixing easily.
Something like that, yeah.
Okay, politically, the 20th century brought massive change, too. 1932.
The declaration of a constitutional monarchy. It should have marked a modern democratic era. But the military very quickly stepped in and became the dominant force. Any early democratic shoots were pretty much stamped out. It set a pattern, unfortunately.
And then World War II, Thailand's position was complicated.
Very. But initially, there was sympathy for China against Japan. But after Japan invaded French Indochina, Thailand was kind of forced into reconciling with Japan.
How did that play out domestically?
Big shifts in propaganda, suddenly pro-Japan messages, censoring anything pro-American, less English and French used publicly. And eventually, the Japanese occupation just hit every part of the economy hard and basically paralyzed the government in Bangkok.
What was the recovery like after the war?
Strenuous is a good word. The population bounced back fast. Bangkok hit over 1 million people for the first time in 1947.
Wow.
But huge problems remained. Lots of job losses, really high inflation, a massive black market where prices were way above legal limits.
Desperate times.
Yeah, leading to more slum growth, especially along the canals. Those shanty towns became a real feature of post-war Bangkok.
And students became more politically active around this time.
It did. They'd been involved back in the 1932 revolution, but it became more organized. By 1955, they were formally protesting the dictatorship, even causing cabinet reshuffles.
So they had real influence.
For a time. The Federation of Thai Students formed in '56, but military coup in '57 shut that down. Still, the seeds were sown, and student movements came back strong again around 1968, becoming a major national force.
But the military coups just kept happening.
That was the recurring theme. 1947, 51, 53, 58. Power kept consolidating with the military. They pushed ideologies like nation, religion, monarchy, clamped down hard on the media. It became quite repressive.
Yet, paradoxically, the economy grew. The miracle of capitalism.
Yeah, it's a strange mix. By the 70s, you had this situation with civilian oligarchs, often allied with the monarchy, pushing these huge mega projects, even under military rule, authoritarianism alongside economic liberalization.
Fascinating. Okay, let's jump forward. Post-Cold War, 21st century Bangkok, there's a renewed global focus on cities.
Definitely. And Bangkok really captured the imagination. There was this optimistic feeling about globalization, even though the city still faced, plenty of challenges.
And you see those contrasts sharply today, right?
Oh, absolutely. You'll see a shiny new mall with international brands right next to a traditional canal, a klong, where families are just, sitting on mats, figuring out their phone plans, layers of time right on top of each other.
And infrastructure took another leap. SkyTrain and subway.
Huge projects in the mid-90s. They finally got built, despite a lot of arguments and costs spiraling. But it marked a massive shift away from relying on the canals. Life moved upwards and downwards off the waterways.
And tourism, it's massive now, isn't it?
Immense. Bangkok is consistently one of the world's top tourist destinations. People come from everywhere for that unique blend. 150-year-old temples next to luxury hotels, the street food, the nightlife, the Grand Palace, floating markets, go-go bars. It's got everything.
But that growth brings serious modern problems, too. Pollution.
Severe problems. Traffic is a nightmare, which means terrible air quality. Waste disposal is a huge issue. The city produces something like 8,300 tons of garbage daily.
Wow.
And PM 2.5, those tiny harmful particles, often way above safe levels, especially compared to European standards. Plus, issues with corruption and waste management don't help.
Are there efforts to tackle this? Sustainability.
There are. The government has initiatives, like a green fence program, trying to ring the city with more vegetation. Major water treatment upgrades for the Chao Phraya, trying to clean it up and create public spaces along it.
And people are getting involved, too.
Yeah, that's really encouraging. Grassroots movements, people cleaning up their own neighborhoods, pushing to reduce plastic use. There's a collective desire to improve things, cool the city down with more greenery, combat that urban heat island effect.
That's good to hear. Now let's circle back to something truly defining. The cultural heritage, especially the temples.
Ah, yes, the myriad temples. The sources call them astonishing, and that feels right. The sheer number and the quality. They're like Venice's canals. They just define the skyline, the visual feel of the city.
And they're more than just beautiful buildings, aren't they?
So much more. Remember, they were built by kings to echo the grandeur of old capitals. They were those free schools we mentioned, vital for preserving Buddhism. And they still are active centers. Mass prayers happen, they hold revered stories and relics, and temple is often too simple a word. It's usually a whole complex. Monks' residences, royal statues, private pagodas, real cultural hubs.
And traditions are still very much alive, like the Krathong Festival.
Oh, yeah, that's beautiful. Floating those little banana leaf boats with candles on the river. And Chinese New Year is huge and vibrant. Plus, you see Hindu traditions woven into daily life, too. Brahmin priests involved in ceremonies. It's a rich tapestry. Which brings us to the core tension, really. How does Bangkok balance all this incredible heritage with breakneck development?
Imposing order versus embracing the chaos.
Exactly. It's a challenge every growing city faces. But maybe it's sharper in Bangkok because its history and growth have been so, well, particular.
And it gets really interesting when you see local communities pushing back, right, against top-down plans.
Fierce resistance sometimes. When there are plans to demolish old neighborhoods for new roads or buildings, people don't see the existing city, even its messy parts, its overload, as backward,
They see it as heritage.
as living cultural heritage. Something to be protected, not bulldozed. It really highlights that deep debate about Bangkok's identity.
So wrapping this all up, Bangkok's journey, it's just incredible. From marshes and huts to the sprawling, complex metropolis, it shows amazing ambition, adaptability.
Resilience, too.
Yeah.
It's been through so much royal shifts, occupations, coups, but it keeps reshaping itself, yet somehow holds on to its core spirit.
Yeah, it's a story about development, culture, outside forces, all interacting.
It really reminds you that a city isn't just buildings and roads. Its uniqueness comes from its specific history, the people who shaped it. It's a living thing.
Absolutely. And that leaves us, and you listening, with a final thought to consider. Bangkok's been called the anti-city par excellence.
Meaning it kind of resists easy labels, rigid structures.
Exactly. It seems to run on informal networks. Its charm is in that sensory overload, that seeming chaos. So the question is, what does it really mean for a city to embrace its chaos as part of its identity? And what could other cities maybe learn from Bangkok's unique way of being in our super fast changing world?